Welcome to the Lake Township Candidate Forum for Village of Hartville Council. The Village of Hartville operates under a mayor-council form of government, which is traditional and the most common structure for municipalities under 5,000 residents. The candidates have been sent their questions in advance because this is indeed a candidate forum. They'll begin with opening statements on why they're running, followed by a rotation of questions. The format will be equal time Q&A, so I as the moderator will pose the question and we'll go in a rotation so that the candidates have a different rotation on who answers the question first. As I said, they have been provided the questions in advance. There will be no audience questions, no interruptions, and no recording allowed during the forum. So first of all, welcome to our candidates running for council. As you may know, council responsibilities include passing ordinances and resolutions, approving the budget and appropriating village funds, setting policies, tax rates and utility fees, providing checks and balances on mayor's actions, and filling vacancies on the council or mayor's office if needed. Our candidates this year, we have 5 candidates vying for 4 seats on council. The last election cycle, there were 2 seats, and the mayoral cycle, of which Mayor ran another, our Mayor Cynthia Billings won another term. Frank Gant was elected and Tom Huff. And as you may, if you watch village politics or council meetings, Frank Gant resigned his seat to take a new superintendent at Waterloo position, and Monica Goodspeed was appointed to replace Frank Gant the rest of his term. So the 5 candidates running for the 4 seats are Jim Sullivan, Tim Hayden, and Steve Reich as incumbents, and then Chris Ramsberg and Matt Caddis. Of those, this morning we have Jim Sullivan, Chris Ramsberg, and Tim Hayden. Matt Caddis has provided answers to the questions for us so that we can post those on our website when we've concluded, and we'll also most likely be posting the written format of the answers that our candidates give as well this morning. So again, welcome. We'll start with opening statements on why you're running and introducing yourself, starting with Jim Sullivan.
Okay, I'm Jim Sullivan. I've been on council for some time, quite some time. And the reason why I'm running is recently council was in charge of replacing a vacant seat for Frank Gant. And during the interview process, we posed the question of why to each of the candidates. And pretty much the standard answer was to give back to the community. For me, this just, it's really how is it done? And for me, it's being a good steward of the funds of the village, making sure that they're spent wisely. Second is protecting and maintaining a good quality of life with the services that we provide the village, the residents, property and business owners, and the visitors to our village. And third is protecting the employees, making sure that they have a good work-life balance. The real question is why apply for a council seat again? This past term has been the most satisfying term yet. Our police department is in their own building, which they constantly express their gratitude every chance they get. We've completed the first year of a 10-year paving project, and that paving project was Cornerstone. And I do get thank yous from the residents of the Cornerstone allotment. And because of the program, I can't wait for the 26th program. The 2026 paving program will be Danbury Glen, and the 2027 paving program will be the Jefferson, Washington area. But council can't stop there. We've worked as a cohesive group, most noticeably in the past 2 years, and continue the momentum. We need to continue this momentum and meeting our objectives. We must lay down a roadmap for future administrations, and I hope to be part of that effort.
Next, Tim Hayden.
Tim Hayden, currently on council, been on council for about 2 years. One of the main things that I wanted to do when I got on council, there were 3 things. One of them was make the streets somehow, some way. Another one was to put the police in a better position safety-wise from the facility that they were in. And the third one is to build a more collaborative professional council. We had some concerns with the way that, I had some concerns, I should say, with the way leadership was handling things and the tone of the meetings, and wanted to try to bring more professionalism and collaboration toward that. I think we've achieved those three things. One of them is in the midst of that now, and that's the comprehensive paving program. I want to make sure that we get that paving program seen through. So I want to make sure I'm part of that. Jim and I developed that program, went into the communities and sold the program to people. It wasn't an easy challenge. It was a 0.5% income tax. Nobody wants more tax. But in order to be able to do that and get that comprehensive paving program, it had to be paid for somehow. And that took a lot of interaction with people in the community. I want to continue that. But the big thing, and you'll hear it probably weaved into most of my answers, is strategic plans going forward in the village. We need to have a plan, and we need to follow the plan. So that is my intention and the reason for me running. And my biggest personal challenge today probably will be looking at the timer and staying within 2 minutes of anyone. Chip's probably well aware I can't say hello within 2 minutes.
Thank you. And third candidate, Chris Ramsberg.
Top of the morning, and I am not an incumbent. It's just a brief little bit about me, if it's meaningful. I have been part of the community since the 4th grade, and have led a insurance agency that's in Uniontown for the past 47, going on 48 years. We were established in 1959 by my dad, Lou, so we have a long standing in the community, and because of that, we feel indebted in a positive way to this community. And it just so happens that I'm going to have more margin in my life and will be able to devote more time. And I've been told by several people that I have a pragmatic bent to me. And I think that I love the word collaborative, and I am in awe of the two fellas on both sides of me that I think we can get some things done.
Good, thank you. So the questions, as I mentioned, have been sent out in advance, and they're geared towards not just residents of the village, because while residents and voters of the village council are stakeholders, much of what happens in the villages affects property owners and business owners, because we're also a revenue source. So these questions are geared more towards a business owner, property owner, and residents as well, but keep that in mind. So the first question, we'll start with Tim Hayden. The role of council. The village council is a legislative body that sets policies, passes ordinances, and provides oversight of village operations. How do you see the council's role in working with the mayor and fiscal officer to ensure accountable, effective government for residents?
As I mentioned earlier, the strategic plan, one of the ways that you can get toward a goal is planning ahead of time. You know, anytime you enter a game, practice is what matters the most. We need to have a plan, and we're working on that plan. We hope to put that plan in place in 2026, hopefully the first quarter. But we need to be able to be more active and more engaged as council and being able to lead the village toward these things. We need to be more proactive rather than reactive. So we need to find what those issues are before they become tremendously detrimental to the village. Of course, when you look at a strategic plan and you look at the future and what you need to do, economic development is a big thing. That is, it's kind of taking an elephant one bite at a time. Do we have all the answers toward economic development in the village? No, we don't. Are we seeking those answers? Are we trying to put together people that have those answers in order to provide what we need to do the strategic plan to move forward where we need to be? Yes, we are. We need to make sure also that we are more transparent in the way that we handle things, not only with the community, but with each other and with, currently Hartville is more of an island within Stark County. We need to build relationships, better relationships with the township, better relationships with the school district, better relationships with the county, so on and so forth, in order to be able to achieve what we want to do in that strategic plan.
Good, thank you. Jim, the same question for you. How do you see council's role in working with the mayor and fiscal officer to ensure accountable, effective government for residents?
From my point of view, in the years of being on council, the most important thing, role that council has with the checks and balances process, especially with the mayor and the fiscal officer, is the operating budget itself. Certain criteria goes into this budget. We maintain a 3 to 5 month reserve. Secondly, we can't spend what we haven't earned, so therefore what we bring in this year is what we'll use to spend next year. The fiscal officer, the mayor, and the department heads actually review their operating budget for their respective departments. The preliminary budget then goes to the finance committee, a subcommittee of council. Once approved by the finance committee, the budget is presented to all of council, and the budget ordinance is actually created. Once passed, that budget ordinance allows the fiscal officer to create purchase orders against each of the expense categories. Purchase orders are paid on time, so we don't incur any late fees. The finance committee reviews and signs each of the bills. A list of bills is generated for council to acknowledge that they've been paid, and a monthly report is generated showing year-to-date revenue, expenses, and fund balances. Occasionally, unforeseen circumstances come up, and then council has to approve appropriation changes in the form of a resolution. And every 2 years, the state actually audits what we do to make sure that we're in compliance with everything that's being done.
Thank you, Jim. And finally, Chris, the same question for you. How do you see the council's role in working with the mayor and fiscal officer to ensure accountable, effective government for residents?
I love the thought of being a collaborative partner between the mayor and the fiscal officer, and as Jim said, the department heads. And I see that happening, but it's one of those things that you need to continue nurturing and building upon. You just can't assume that, well, we got that done and dusted, and we can move on to something else. I also like the idea and would want to have open communication and transparency. And we'll get into maybe some ideas at some of the later questions. But I think that's going to be really important, and that means both residents and also businesses that choose to hopefully be established here and thrive here. So it's going to be something that we're going to work on, a balance between everything.
Thank you, Chris. Speaking of transparency and communication, next question, starting with Jim Sullivan. Historical controversies have existed regarding council's appointment processes to fill vacancies, the enforcement of the distracted driving ordinance, and more recently, sewer mandates. How do you or will you engage public input from not just residents, but business owners, building and property owners to address the generally perceived lack of transparency that seems to persist?
I struggled with this question because it's in two parts, the transparency part and the engagement part. I talk more about the engagement part here. Former council member Frank Camp he was a master of engaging the public. From public forums and street paving, for promoting the street paving. And he created an email group recapping and sending them recaps of all the latest council meetings. Council plans on actually continuing enhancing this process, making sure that we keep that email group active, and we're able to continue to send out those recap reports. Mr. Hayden, who has already talked about the strategic plan, has his own advisory board, and so he's able to very distracting. He's developed a business advisory board with the local business owners. Our council meetings are live on Facebook as part of being transparent. I am regularly invited to meetings with business owners and other local county administrators. And as council pro temp, I attend meetings when the mayor's schedule doesn't allow her. And I continue to attend local events to promote the village and be a good representative for the village.
Thank you. Chris, how would you engage public input from residents, business owners, property and building owners to address the generally perceived lack of communication that seems to persist?
This is my perception from the outside looking in, because again, I'm not part of council, but I'm a longtime resident and a business owner within the community. I think a lot of what we're talking about is legacy. So we choose to remember things a lot longer than maybe we should. The current council, as particularly Jim talked about, I think it's pretty vibrant and collaborative. So I'm impressed with what I see. That doesn't mean that we can't improve, and Tim and his group and certainly the rest of the council members put together this strategic plan that we keep talking about. Well, here it is, and I think it's pretty impressive. Talked about earlier that there's been strategic plans in the past, and it's kind of like, well, we got that done, let's put it in the drawer and move on to something else, and you don't get it back up and see where we're headed. So it's a little bit like trying to get to Phoenix, Arizona, and just saying in Hartville, okay, we'll just kind of head that direction. I love the idea of being collaborative with the community and every data point or every connection that we can make. So if that's eyeball to eyeball, which is my favorite form of communication, that's great. But if it's Facebook and emails, printed newsletters, whatever it is, I think we should try everything and see what has traction and what doesn't.
Thank you. And finally, Tim, how do you or will you continue to engage input from the village residents, owners, and property owners?
Start by saying I'm already seeing how well Mr. Sullivan, Mr. Ransberg, and myself will work together, because I had 2 points. Jim mentioned one of them, and Chris mentioned the other. I'm left to either elaborate or throw on a third one somewhere along the line. We'll elaborate on the 2 that they mentioned. One is communicating with the public through that email communication that Mr. Gant took on. When he left council, he asked for somebody to take that over, and I did volunteer to take that over. I see some of you are probably on that email list. I don't know your email handles, most of you, but I know you have to be on there. It's a pretty comprehensive list of people. There were 100 and some people, I think, on that list. I sent out an email to everybody on that list saying, if you don't want to be on the list anymore, let me know. So I'm in the process of cleaning that up. It probably won't be next council meeting, but somewhere along the line, we'll start getting those again. Probably a little bit different than what Mr. Gant did, but hopefully it's useful. So we do want to continue that process. We want to grow it as well, but we don't want it to take up a whole lot of your time either. We don't want you to have a 10-minute read for every time there's a council meeting. Second thing Mr. Ransberg mentioned is the working with the community. And I have developed a business advisory board, and that's part of the strategic plan that's made up of people within the community that have been successful within the community. The reason we want to do that is we do fully understand that we don't know everything. And there's a lot of things that we are just not from our backgrounds, not from our desires, but from our backgrounds or our work experience, we don't have the answers to. But there are people within the village that do. We brought these people together, and we're calling upon them to kind of give advice to us on the liaison between council and that business advisory board. Chip is a member. He has volunteered to be a member of that advisory board. We want to use that to develop what we need to develop and work with Lake Township and with the council and with neighboring communities in order to get to where we need to be.
Thank you, Tim. Third question, starting with Chris Ramsberg, regards downtown Hartville. The village has limited resources, yet downtown Hartville faces issues such as deteriorating sidewalks, vacant buildings, empty lots. As a council member, how would you prioritize funding and partnerships to address these challenges while balancing other community needs?
You know, at this point, I really don't know what the budget allocation is through the Village of Hartville or the Village of Hartville for those kind of projects or initiatives. I have no idea what type of grants are there, maybe Christ Foundation might help. Just kidding, Louis. I don't think it's in your wheelhouse. But I think probably the very first thing is to have enforcement of the building or ordinances that we currently have. So if you are having a decent eyesight and vision going through the village, I think it's kind of in tatters. It's a charming village, but it could be improved upon, and it wouldn't take that much. So I'm curious what happens if the people that are having businesses, being landlords in that area, just say talk to the hand, or if they're willing to step up and show pride. I don't know those answers, but it's confounding to me, and I drive through the village, I don't know, minimum of 6 times a day.
Okay, thank you. Tim?
I think when you address a concern, one thing you have to do is understand the challenges behind that in order to be able to attack that problem. With downtown Hartville, there are a few challenges that we have to address, and we have to understand that. One is the historical district poses a little bit of a challenge towards some things. Zoning, as it currently exists, creates a little bit of a problem with some of the things we need to do. And I'll call it out-of-town ownership of properties. I'll call it out-of-town ownership of properties. Kind of gives us a little bit of a challenge too. If you're a landlord, if you're in Hartville and you have property in Minerva or you have property in Carrollton, you're not as likely to be able to take a ownership and a concern of that and beautify it or do anything with it. So we need to understand those challenges. We need to create a plan in order to move forward before we can even consider partnering or how we're going to get the funding. But it all has to be a comprehensive plan, much like the strategic plan. There's an accessibility issue, there's parking issues, there's several concerns within the downtown Hartville umbrella that we need to address. But we need to understand the challenges first and kind of tick them off one by one and go forward in that direction.
Thank you. Jim, as a council member, how would you or do you prioritize funding and partnerships to address the challenges about downtown?
The answer to your question is yes, we have very limited resources when it comes to funding. Our budget is always very tight every year. But the mayor and I have already engaged an engineering firm that's capable of looking for grants, and they work off of grants. This is how they get paid. So the grant process for them is they go out, they find them, they introduce them to council, get our acceptance on them, and then basically start performing whatever the grants are. Those grants could be something as simple as safe routes to school. They can connect residents to businesses. I would pose the question to the Commerce Committee to look at the vacant buildings and the empty lots and see if strategically we could take advantage of those. And I'm sure that's something that would be in the strategic plan itself. So.
Good, thank you. Our next question regarding economic development, starting with Tim Hayden. What specific steps are you or would you take to identify and remove the roadblocks that exist or existing and potential business owners face in Hartville, such as zoning, permitting, infrastructure challenges? And how would you work with both entrepreneurs and business owners to create a more business-friendly environment while maintaining Hartville's unique character?
First, we have to go to the people that are in business to determine what those challenges are that they face. And we've done that. So we put together a business advisory board. One of their key roles is going to give us feedback on, is it a challenge to do business in Hartville? And if it is, why is it a challenge in doing business in Hartville? Why do people not want to come into Hartville to do business or create a business if that is actually certainly the opinion of a lot of people. So we're the people that have been successful in being able to overcome whatever roadblocks or obstacles that have been in their way are going to be the ones that are going to help us do that. We're going to branch out to other businesses that have been successful too. It's not going to just rely on those 8 to 10 people. We're going to put together a strategic plan once we get through all that in order to address those one by one And it won't be an easy thing. It won't be something that'll be turned around in a month or two, or maybe even a year or two. But we have to identify them. We have to get out there to the people that see this and ask them what they think we need to do. Let them identify what they feel would make it easier for them to be able to do business in Hartville. Beyond that, when you really look into the strategic plan, as I said, that's going to be the meat of most of my answers. When you look into it, it has to be something that's going to be able to be sustainable through no matter what councils come into play. It's not going to be something that can die in a year or two, or die when Mr. Sullivan or Mr. Ramsberg and myself are not on council anymore. Should Mr. Ramsberg get on council? We need to have that to be sustainable, we need it to be understandable, and it needs to be transparent. I've shared the draft of the strategic plan with just about everybody that's asked for it. I encourage you, if you want to see a draft of it, it's not the final form, let me know, I'll send you a draft of it. I'll be happy to get your opinion on what it is.
Thank you. Jim, same question for you. How would you, or do you work with business owners and community to create a more business-friendly environment while maintaining Hartville's unique character?
One of the feedbacks we get from business owners most of the time is is as far as roadblocks are concerned, is the permit process, how slow it is, how exceptions are handled through the BZA, the fact that it takes so long. Why is council, this is a question that Mr. Hayden and I have come up with, is why is council always approving what the BZA is doing? So streamlining the process is going to be pretty important. The idea that we go through this process and then we second guess ourselves by having council doing all this work. Part of the reason is the trust in the zoning book. Does council really trust the zoning book? Council put together the zoning book, council members wrote the zoning book. That seems to be where the problem starts, is that maybe we don't trust what we've written. And we need to go back and relook at this and have it professionally written. Taking certain aspects out of it and certain biases out of the zoning book itself makes it more streamlined. Then once it's been streamlined like that, you allow BZA, the Planning Commission, and the zoning inspector to do their jobs. We already do this in other areas of council where we don't get involved in it, and we just streamline the process so that way we can have them take those roadblocks, shorten the process time, and reduce those permit times.
Thank you, Jim. Chris, what would you like to see as far as working with business owners and community to create a more business-friendly environment while maintaining the character of downtown Hartville?
I confirm everything that Tim and Jim just stated, because I think that's just wildly important. We're staring out at a group that could give us a lot of feedback and real life stories of how things worked and sometimes things didn't work. I've heard some stories where it's been smooth and they're ready to hug the village of Hartville, and other times it's not so much. And so how do we ask the right questions to get effective answers that we can act on and at least ponder and consider? Because every answer we get is not going to be actionable or practical, or you can go on and on about that. But with the council and the mayor and the rest of the group, I think that we can definitely work towards that. But it needs to be business friendly, and people stake their livelihoods and their savings into what they're doing. And we need to support both the current businesses wildly, and then be able to attract with a good story that's actually more than a good story, it's real, to be able to attract new businesses in.
Thank you, Chris. Next question, Jim will be the first to answer regarding residential expansion. As our village continues to face opportunities for new housing developments, how would you balance the need for residential growth with maintaining our community's character, infrastructure capacity, and quality of life for current residents?
First is actually maintaining the community's character, the charm of the country stores and the influence of the Amish and the Mennonite legacies. Within Hartville, we have the historical downtown area. This is overseen by the Architect Review Board. We have connections to the past and we incorporate that which is modern. Second is designing infrastructure that can be expanded. Most of our infrastructure, our sewer plant is expandable, fairly easy. And the third item here would be the quality of life. Keeping the village safe with the services we provide, maintaining walkable neighborhoods, prioritizing pedestrians over vehicles. Within the quality of life, we'll see the new housing developments that are in the area are basically limiting the streets to the residents only. So it's not a cut through for transient voters to go from point A to point B.
Good, thank you. Chris, from your seat, as the village faces opportunities for housing development, how would you balance the need for residential growth but maintain the character, infrastructure, and quality for the current quality of life?
Well, when I think of this, I'm thinking about growth must be thoughtful. We don't just run wild into whatever we're going to do. It needs to be thoughtful, and I really feel that the current residents should have the focus first, because I just do. And then any kind of future development would be in a second tier. So I was elated to hear, and we have at least one resident from the Cornerstone development that, surprise, surprise, the roads finally got paved. That's affirmation that we're taking care of our current residents. The new development, I think we should possibly be open, and I don't know what the age span is, but population drifting older, there might be a reason to have condominiums that would be close to what we currently have with the shopping centers in downtown Hartville, not some other place, but to think it out. And I think General Brook has had some good ideas, and we could possibly do that ourselves with the right developer or a development firm, visionaries that have something in mind. But the green space and the charm of the village is very important.
Thank you. Tim, same question for you. How do you balance the need for residential growth with maintaining the community's character, infrastructure capacity, and quality of life for current residents?
And that is one of the most significant challenges that we face. As many of you know, Stark County right now is in practically a housing crisis. We need homes. Hartville, its footprint is not all that large. It's not as though we have a whole lot of vacant space in order to build residential communities. But we have to be open to the idea of adding residential communities to our area. One of the things that makes that even more of a challenge is keeping the culture of Hartville, if you will. As you move forward and as we progress, and any community as it gets larger, there's always a challenge in being able to keep that hometown feel, that charm, as Mr. Sullivan mentioned. But if you have the right leadership in place with that in mind, then you can do that. It has to be a focus on balancing that in order to balance that. And it's really a case-by-case basis. You know, if somebody would come to us now and they want to develop an area, and we would have to sit down and walk through how does that impact everything else before we would go through with something like that. So I think it's a question of leadership and the right people in the right place in order to make sure that you are able to balance those two things and not forget what Hartville is. The other part of this that people don't really recognize as a whole in our community is we are a bedroom community. A lot of people still think of us as an industrial community, but we don't have much industry. We're not gonna bring much industry in. There's no room for it. We're not gonna be able to do that. We are a place where people that live out of town, that's why we see our taxes the way they are. People that live in town, work out of town, and this is where they choose to live because it's a nice community. It costs money to live in that community when you don't have industry and a lot of tax money coming in from that area. That's why we had to do the improvements for the roads. So as we build a community, we need to understand that we are more of a bedroom community than we are anything else. So we have a little bit of an identity crisis in that.
And I encourage you, please keep your voice elevated. Our mic is back there. Final question regarding long-term vision. We'll start with Tim. As a village council member, what do you see as the top 3 priorities for improving the quality of life and economic vitality in Hartville, aside from the strategic plan? Like what's in the plan, I think is what would be helpful. How would you set measurable goals for these priorities, and what benchmarks or indicators would you use to demonstrate progress to the community over time?
The first one would be completing a comprehensive paving plan. You know, roads have been an issue for just about everybody in Hartville. If it's not your particular community, it's the roads on which you travel. So you can't go through Hartville without seeing that there's a road that needs addressed. We need to follow that through. We need to do as we said we were going to do. Touch all of these roads within the village of Hartville in this 10-year plan. That's the first thing. The second thing, getting into the guts of the strategic plan. The pieces of the strategic plan as we see them are financial accountability, safety, accessibility, attracting and retaining qualified people. Those are the big points of it. If we're going to keep this community safe, we have to attract the right people in the service area. We have the right people in the police department. We have to have the right people working on the street department. We have the right people also in elected office. We have to have the right people that have anything to do with the future of Hartville. And that's a challenge in today's society. You know, you've tried to hire for some of your businesses, you know what a challenge it is hiring for whatever area you're in. So hiring for a particular area like the police department or the street department is even more of a challenge. We are faced with not having the sort of funding to be able to pay the type of rates to draw people away from other communities. We can't do that, so we have to come up with other things that we can offer and create how we are able to do that. The last thing, part of that strategic plan that weaves through the whole thing is relationships and building those relationships, as I mentioned earlier. We need to be relational with businesses, we need to be more relational with the community, we need to be more relational with the township, with the school district, and with the county. That way, when we come into a position where there's something available, number one, we know about it, or number two, we can work cooperatively with any one of those entities in order to be able to make the whole community better, not just the village.
Thank you, Tim. Jim, to you again. As village council member, what do you see as the top 3 priorities for improving the quality of life and economic vitality in Hartville? How would you set measurable goals for these priorities, or what benchmark indicators would you use to demonstrate progress to the community over time?
One of my items, Mr. Hayden, that's expounded on pretty well. I'm going to skip over it. It is actually the strategic plan, making sure that we complete that. One of the other items that long-term is that we put the police department in a building with a lease. Mr. Hayden set up the contract that we agreed upon, that we have the ability to actually first right of refusal. So the goal there would be is to actually purchase that building at some point in time. The lease was originally written for 15 years, so there is the potential that it could be sold at any time, but the idea would be is that we would have to actually create that as a permanent location for police department. That would give some job opportunities in the case that we have to have a project or a property management department to actually control that. Expounding on the long-term the paving program, we've already gotten requests from Cornerstone of when they're going to be paved again. So the part of the issue with the paving is when you don't pave for 30 years, it's a massive project. But when you pave and you maintain the paving in a proper rate, repaving is very simple, taking off the top coat and putting a new top coat back on. It's less expensive. It's part of the maintenance program. And that's what we would intend to do with the cornerstone allotment and all the allotments, all the paving as we go. Would be short-term. Long-term program is just to get the paving done for everything, but short-term, after that would be just to maintain that paving so we don't get into the expense we're getting.
Thank you, Jim. And finally to you, Chris, as a village council member, what would you like to see, or what do you see as the top 3 priorities for improving the quality of life and economic vitality? How would you set goals and benchmarks for these to demonstrate progress?
That's a great question.
Thank you.
The first would be, if we touched on revitalizing the downtown. We need to figure out how to take care of the appealing paint facades flat out. So I can expand, but I think we talked about that a lot, just step up and show pride. The second would be supporting small businesses, and again, with the collaboration between the Lake Township Chamber of Commerce, I think we can do a lot of things. One benchmark, because you talked about how would it be measurable if we were successful, might be increased membership into the chamber. So I think that would be a quick one to say, oh, by the way, 3 years from now, what is the membership versus what it was now? The third area would be, again, we talked about this, taking care of the residents and hearing them. And anybody that's been around me very long knows one of my thoughts is there's virtually no such thing as over-communication. So who in your life do you know that over-communicates? You might know one person. But we need to step up and be responsible, because it's up to us to make the first move into that communication with the current residents and future residents.
Thank you. And now, as a finish, we give each 1 minute to make a closing statement. If there's something that wasn't brought up that you want to mention, or if you want to just abjectly ask for votes. Starting with you, Chris.
Yes, I'll ask for any residents here. Who are residents? I'm just curious. Okay. I'll be honored for your vote. When I think of this, because I wasn't sure, I've never done this before, a closing statement, I would say this, that I'm all in. My wife Lynn and I don't have a second home anyplace else. We don't plan on moving anyplace else. And we've been here for a long, long time. So this is a big deal for us to be able to be part. We've always been part of the village, certainly logistically, geographically, and we've contributed in many other ways over the years. But this is a different way to be able to contribute and hopefully show value. And one of my other words is that I want to have an influence, and this is a way to hopefully have a positive influence.
Thank you, Chris. Jim, anything we didn't touch on, or any closing statement?
For the most part, it's the past 2 years have been really satisfying. We've made great progress on the things we've done, the roads, the police department. We'll continue those. I hope to continue those, I should say. Well, I will give a public service announcement at this point, if I may. The public service announcement is simple. Monica Goodspeed is actually on council. You will see her on the ballot. And because you will see her on the ballot, her votes mean nothing. So choose your votes wisely. That way, you're not wasting votes for Monica, who's already on. So
Thank you.
there is actually a note. The board says that they will put a note on the ballot so that if you actually vote for him, you'll see that note.
Thank you for that clarification.
Yeah.
Tim?
I think Mr. Solomon makes a good point. In the last couple of years, there, particularly two issues that had not been resolved for years and years and years and years, but were identified as challenges, were condition of the streets and safety of the police department. Those have been resolved. So not only were the issues, they were identified way before I got on council, but Mr. Sullivan and I worked very hard together, along with other members of council board, to make things happen in order to resolve those issues. I think that needs to be noted. We need to continue that kind of leadership, which will allow us to move forward with everything else. Not only continue that, but address problems as they come up. I'm not gonna say anything about the strategic plan. In the shame, I got one shameless plug, and then I want to give kudos to one of the people sitting here. My shameless plug would be not only vote for me, but vote for these two gentlemen. As you can see, as we sit here, I think you're seeing the collaborative nature of what we have just sitting at this table. And that's what we need to continue doing. And it would be an honor for me to be elected. It would be an honor for me to serve with Mr. Sullivan and Mr. Ramsberg. And the shout out would go to another Mr. Ramsberg. We talked a little bit about downtown Hartville. He has done personally exactly what we want everybody else to do that owns anything in downtown Hartville. He's done it very well. He's done it very quickly. And he's vocal enough about it without being annoying about it. He'll tell you when he sees something, and he'll come up with an idea, and he puts the work in. He puts the feet on the ground, and he does it. And I just want to thank you, Christian, for what you've done, and hopefully what you continue to do. And I would encourage you to buy up more property in downtown.
No. Too soon. Thank you to each of our candidates for participating. Thank you to our timer. And thank you, audience, for your participation and attendance. On behalf of the Lake Township Chamber of Commerce, we hope you attend and watch our other candidate forums as well. Thank you.